Bradley blockhouse and flood house should be mounted in the next week or two. I'm not sure what the schedule is for placing it. We'll probably dedicate it for the next month's meeting in May. Any other announcements? Yeah.
I'm Lisa Ikeda. I don't know if you've seen me in the paper, but we have opened Potter's Tavern. It's a deli espresso bar, no beer, no wine, non-smoking, and we've been open 2 weeks now. So, Pacific Highway, exit 124, Gravelly Lake, across from El Toro's Pizza Casa, the brown, the old Potter's Tavern. And it's really nice and cozy, and I've got lots of compliments, so I welcome you all.
Tell us about the marker that's right by you.
Oh, yes, we have the historical rock monument that commemorates the, I don't know all of it, but Walla Walla to Fort Steilacoom. I believe it was 1853 to 1854.
I think it's the Natchez Trail. And that's the marker Jim Senko and I were just talking about shortly about trying to do some repair to the rock. So we're working on it.
Oh, good.
Just wheels move slowly. You got some rocks?
Thank you.
No, there's a rock here.
Okay, any other announcements? Yeah.
There are copies of the bylaws on the table.
Okay, for those that want.
And also a calendar of the rest of the year.
Okay. Well, our program tonight is on the railroad, and Jim Frederickson here is going to, now that we've got a projector, we'll show the show and talk the talk. Go ahead, thank you.
Well, I thought I'd ask a question first. I don't know if you can hear this or not, but so everybody answer my question? What I said was, can anybody here read Railroad Morse? I do that to demonstrate that I'm a genuine living antique, because I was a telegraph operator. And sort of what I'm going to talk about tonight is changes on the railroad. Everything, every place is just change, you know. But the railroad's right out there in the forefront. Changes over the years. In 3 days, it will be 60 years ago that I went to work for the Northern Pacific Railway. I was like to take pictures, and I got to hanging around Union Station with my camera, taking pictures of locomotives. And they said, well, you're hanging around here all the time, why don't you go to work? World War II was a short of help. Well, I was still in 10th grade in high school, stadium. So I went to work as what they call a call boy. Worked 4 to midnight at Union Station, and then went to school during the day. Which was all right most of the time, except now and then had an attractive young lady that came to work at midnight. Once in a while she'd have a heavy date on or something and wouldn't show up. And so I'd have to what they call double over. I'd work through till 6 in the morning. They'd call the day crew, call her on early, and then I'd go up and try to stay awake in class all day, which I could pretty much do until a typing class about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. All of that monotony, typing drills, you know, that first thing I knew my head was down on the typewriter. But anyway, survived that, and then I never left. Worked for the railroad for another 40 years. I've got to put in a little disclaimer. A week ago, I was called out of town. Kind of a neat assignment, really, all in all. I had to go to Denver, and there's 2 big new railroad passenger cars that were built near Denver for Holland America. And they're going up to Alaska. Maybe some of you have been up there on the Holland America cars. Well, they built these new ones. They're the biggest railroad cars ever built. 89 feet long and 18 feet 2 inches high. So they said, fly to Denver last Monday night, just a week ago. Come out Tuesday morning on Amtrak, be home by Friday. Well, Amtrak runs over the Union Pacific west out of Denver. And these cars are 18 feet 2 inches high. And they got to looking at their tunnel clearances. And 18 feet 1 inch was as big as they could think. So they argued about that for a couple of days. My friend Ed Burnson was ramrodding this move. And finally they decided the only way they could get up there was to go Burlington Northern Freight Train. So finally, I guess it was, I'm losing track of time, Thursday night I left on a Burlington Northern Freight Train riding these two glorious cars, and they have their own power and lights and alarms. It was a nice way to travel, and I saw some country I hadn't seen before, the Wind River Canyon in Wyoming, went to near Billings, Montana, and headed west for there on the old Northern Pacific, now Montana Rail Link, and went over Mullen Pass, just a glorious ride across that rugged pass in the Rockies, and then on to Spokane, and then got into Seattle yesterday afternoon, home about 10:30, and I had not got this program prepared before I left. So today I've been trying to throw it together, and then I had a problem with my projector. So the question is going to be, you want to make some bets among yourselves, how many of these pictures are going to be upside down and backwards? Just hope that there aren't too many of them, but could be most all of them. So anyway, I'll get started here. Let's see, the changer cord is there. Walk you through here. Okay, now you know all about Burlington Northern, Santa Fe, and Union Pacific, and a few great big roads. Well, back in the 1870s, there wasn't any railroad out here. In 1863, President Lincoln signed a charter for the first transcontinental railroad, the Union Pacific. In 1864, he signed a charter for the first northern transcontinental, the Northern Pacific. A lot of people wanted to build the NP on the North Line first, Puget Sound, and then a quick, well not quick, but a more direct access to the Orient. But because of the Civil War and the gold rush in California, the Union Pacific route went out first, and it was finished in 1869. And then the Northern Pacific had quite a lot of financial problems getting started, but finally they did. In 1870, they started building on the east end west at Carlton, Minnesota, near Duluth. And they started construction a year later, that was 1870. 1871 they started out here at Klamath. You all know where Klamath is, down north, 40 miles north of Vancouver. Well, they picked Klamath because it was on the Columbia River and they could ship supplies from the east coast around the Horn to Klamath, construction supplies for the railroad. And one of the things that got shipped around was the Northern Pacific's first engine, the Minnetonka. It had worked a year on the east end, on the very beginning of the railroad, then came out here on its first engine out here. It worked for the NP for a number of years. Then in the 1890s it was sold to a logging company, Polson Logging Company, acquired it down by Hopewind. And then in the early 1930s, it was discovered that it was there, and the Northern Pacific traded them a second-hand steam engine for the Minnetonka. It was refurbished and used for promotion and civic celebrations, like the Daffodil Parade. It was here, loaded on a flatbed truck. And the thing I kind of liked about this photo opportunity here was, it's got the NP's first engine, and in the background, the Northern Pacific Hotel, Stadium High School. Right in your way there. Oh,
You still got more
let's
for
see.
it.
What if I stand right in the... Is all right? Well, let's see, I'll kind of
Chair right there. Do you want to pull the chair up, Jim? Chair, or you-
Well, maybe if I
about if,
Call it from here? Yeah, we'll try that.
I mean, I think everybody can hear you.
Jim, what year was this particular picture?
Okay, if you end up not hearing me because I'm facing the wrong way, let me know how.
What year was this photo, Jim?
This photo was 1967.
Those daffodils?
Oh, yeah, Daffodil Parade.
And of course, the Northern Pacific was going to build this grand hotel in the early 1890s, and it had a catastrophic fire, which coincided with the railroad going broke in 1893. And they couldn't afford to keep going with this, so they sold it to the city, and it was, in 1910, became Stadium High School. Now I guess it's going to go undergo a nice modernization program. Okay, this is the earliest picture I've ever run across of a Northern Pacific train. This was taken at Kalama in 1872. And it was a year before the rails got through to Tacoma. It came into Tacoma on December 16, 1873. That's when Northern Pacific Rails met Pacific Ocean Sails here at Tacoma. But that's the kind of the train. They had a passenger coach and 3 boxcars there. They'd stop any place if they were flagged. They ran one train north out of Kalama in the morning and another train south out of Tacoma, and they went by each other around Kelso. And in the early days, this was a kind of locomotive they had. This is called an American Standard. It had 4 little wheels in the front and then 4 driving wheels, 2 on each side. But then as the years progressed and things changed, they got bigger. This was kind of the basic standard freight locomotive for the Northern Pacific. This was taken in 1943 when I was first working out at the depot. And one way you can date pictures within about a 4-year time frame, it has a blackout hood. For World War II, they were fearful of air raid and took the shrouds over the headlights. That's where the UW campus is now. The museum is back there, right at the end of the sheds for the station at Tacoma. And then, of course, the steam engines vanished about 1957, and diesels took over, and that's how it's focused at.
There's a little knob on the top. Now,
Over there. And there. Coming out of Union Station. And then this is just after M Day, Merger Day, March 3rd, 1970. It's marked in black on the Northern Pacific Historical Association calendar. But that's when the Northern Pacific, Great Northern, Spokane, Portland, Seattle, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy, along with a couple of smaller roads, joined together or merged together to become Burlington Northern. And of course, since then, the St. Louis, San Francisco, or Frisco Railroad has come into the BN, and then in 1995, there was this very large merger between Burlington Northern and the adjacent Topeka and Santa Fe, making it Burlington Northern Santa Fe that blankets the whole west of Chicago. This was kind of a neat opportunity because it has one color of each road at the beginning of the merger. There's Great Northern, Northern Pacific, Spokane, Portland, and Seattle, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy engine, and then the new Burlington Northern. Well, now I'm going to talk to begin with about stations and train traffic control, so to speak, although we call it train dispatching.